66% of women in tech lack a defined career advancement. The issue is that they feel they're being excluded from opportunities.
Yeah.
So adopting a specific technology is not the solution. That technology needs to be integrated into your organization and your decision-making processes of your operations to be useful in decision-making. The bigger risk is, at least for those of us in technology, AI isn't necessarily going to take your job or replace you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to In the Making, the show where we uncover transformative stories that redefine success and impact. I am your host, Niya, and today I am thrilled to have Crystal Guthrie, a dynamic force in both the technology and impact worlds. With over 2 decades of experience, Crystal has been a key player at Microsoft as well as FinTech, with Merrill Lynch and CNBC to name a few companies. Early on, she worked to democratize financial markets data and new advocates for leveraging AI for impact through two lenses: sustainability and arts. Her mission is to foster inclusive economic power for women and encourage us all to unlock the full potential of data. Let's dive right into her inspiring journey and explore how she's creating a future where technology serves humanity. Crystal, welcome to In the Making. I'm so fortunate that you agreed to be with us today.
Thanks so much, Nia, for having me.
You've been into such a beautiful journey. It's evolving. Data is rocking the world right now. You've spoken about, women building and using their economic power. What's the boldest step women can take right now to turn the right in male dominated industries?
I would say the number one bold step that women can take, and something that I like to use to sum it up, because there's lots of things we can do, right? But it all ladders up to take up your space.
Hmm.
So you've gotten to this point because you're qualified.
Mm-hmm.
And it can sometimes be daunting to be the only person in the
Correct.
conference room around the table, or the only person in your sales team, for
Right.
instance, or the only person in your engineering team who's a woman. So taking up your space and actually enjoying that space is extremely important. And then the other things that we need to do, where we bring along other underrepresented groups, including other women, can happen naturally over the course of time.
That's so true. My husband is an engineer, and the ratio of women till today in his team is 2 is to 20. So 2 women versus 20 men. And it's unbelievable because here we all are talking about more girls in STEM. And while that is all accessible, we still don't know what the future holds. I think the ratio of dropping is more than women getting in. What do you think is the reason that till today, a lot of girls, when they even get in, are getting out faster?
Yeah, there's a lot of debate about why do women not reach higher levels in organizations, and you can hear a lot of rhetoric about it, but the data is there and it's available. Women seek higher education in the United States defined as a bachelor's or a master's degree more than men.
True.
So the funnel is bigger. In addition to that, women are graduating with STEM degrees, and they
Yes.
actually get entry-level jobs in STEM, but at around 8 years in. So when you're leaving the early in career stage and you're getting to the place where you should be promoted to management of an initiative or
Exactly.
across a team, not necessarily full corporate titles yet, but the beginning of, the middle stage of your career,
Yes.
that's where a lot of women start leaving the workforce, at least within technology, and shifting to different roles. And there's a misnomer that it's because of making decisions to stay at home with children. That's not the actual issue that the data shows. The issue is that they feel they're being excluded from opportunities,
Yeah.
from the innovative projects, from the promotions, from being asked to be on a special task force that includes your executives, where you start developing your executive presence. Women are left behind at that point, and then they oftentimes find out that their peers, the men around them, are paid more than they are for the
Right.
same work with potentially different performance. And that's not motivating. So women leave the tech industry and go elsewhere where they feel more belonging and more sense of agency and accomplishment.
Yes, I agree. And I was just reading an article yesterday where they said there's only 29% of representation of women leaders or women in the senior management, and that's pretty low. But I don't want to say, Crystal, you are leading a transformation. I think it reminded me of a quote from Sheryl Sandberg, and she said, in the future, there'll be no female leaders, there'll be just leaders. So you're proving that every single day. The gap between ambition and execution often lies in economic empowerment. How do you think, Crystal, women can, at the start of their careers, begin to think bigger about their financial futures?
It's a great question and something that I discuss a lot with women as they're moving through decisions around what companies or organizations to join and what types of roles to pursue and how to advocate for a promotion, etc. There's a lot of data available now that wasn't available when you and I started our careers, Nia,
Right.
around average pay, compensation, which can include salary as well as bonus, which is critical in building wealth.
Yes.
Um, get smart about your industry, get smart about your role, figure out what your peers are being
Mm,
compensated as. Have your own advisory council of women and male allies who will share that information because the reality is that people who are connected do share that type of information. And then they turn around and use that for negotiation and leverage when they have an opportunity for a role. Those days oftentimes happen to be men. Women tend to be more private about their finances. We need to be radically transparent with each other and help each other negotiate for the value that we're bringing to the table. In addition to that, we have the ability to control what we do with our finances. And that includes getting smart about financial management as individuals. And how do you build wealth for yourself and future generations of your family? Investing early, understanding risk profiles, and taking those steps in different parts of your financial portfolio. If you're in a situation that's not serving you, you have the opportunity to change. So, in one part, it's coming together and advocating for yourself and negotiating. But another part is being really involved in your own financial future. I liken it to a game. Learn the rules and have fun playing the game. And it will benefit you and give you lots of flexibility down the road that you can't even envision when you start that journey.
wow, that was extremely impactful, Crystal. There's one thing I want to add on to what Crystal mentioned here is that remember, you can seek out for mentorship. And a lot of young girls or women are not doing that. Maybe you are scared, maybe you're unaware of the market. I would say people are really nice and genuinely open minded, but you have to be very specific about who you are reaching out to. You see in your industry, in your market, who actually belongs there, and you might have some common connections. And it is so valuable when you have a mentor who can guide you through these small hurdles, and becomes a little more easier to navigate in your journey towards success. I have a question for you, Crystal, in this particular segment where a lot of times women do talk about the bias that they encounter in the workforce. But do you think women face specific bias in the data and the AI industry that prevents them from building significant wealth?
Definitely. If we look at the technology industry in general, biases persist across the industry still in 2024. For example, 66% of women in tech lack a defined career advancement route. More than half of women in tech have no advancement route that they've agreed to with their manager or in their organization. Women are 1.6 times more likely to be laid off as men. And as we came out of the overhiring from the COVID period, and we started seeing the technology industry shedding jobs, women
Right.
were impacted more than men in those layoffs.
I didn't know
Uh,
that. That's
and
an important learning.
yeah, and so what happens when you're laid off? Your income stops. You have to seek your own health insurance. And you also have to find another role, which
Hmm.
may take time. It's a layoff that's impacting across your industry, such
Right.
as the financial industry, before I went to tech. So um, it's not trivial the impact. The decisions are made by leadership in companies when they do layoffs, and they don't question that the majority of who's getting laid off are women, even though women are underrepresented in the workforce in technology. So it's an outsized impact to them. Finally, only 25% of the technology C suite today are women.
Mm.
This is a C suite story you see across the board in the United States. However, it's even more troubling in technology, and it directly impacts women. So, to sum it up, not having the promotion path to begin with, which we also talked about a little bit earlier, being laid off disproportionately more often than your male peers,
Right.
and not making it to the C suite over time impacts how much you earn over the course of your career and signifies that you have significant financial disruption multiple times in your career. We can't change the big picture, but
No.
what we can do is recognize the patterns and be prepared for them. And
Right.
that's part of what I advocate for women to really leverage their economic power more, because it's so critically important. The situation isn't going to fix itself, so we should fix it for ourselves.
Wow, I love how you ended that segment because I think that was very, very valuable information. If you missed it, please go back, rewind, replay, and listen it all over again because I think that information is bang on the most critical and important information I've heard. Because you are in the world of AI and data, of course, we are not going to let you go without answering a lot of those questions. AI is reshaping the industries, but how do we preserve our humanity in a world dominated by algorithms, automation? How can data empower rather than exploit?
It's a really interesting topic. If we look at history, we see what happened with the Industrial Revolution in multiple ways. There's lots of data available around that. And you can also see lots of work by authors who, sort of tell the narrative and get to some of the key trends. As we look at the changes that AI is going to bring to us as people in our home life, our communities, our workplaces, we should not repeat the mistakes of the past.
Right.
So, in the Industrial Revolution, individuals left their independent means of production, be it somebody who's a blacksmith, for instance, walked into a factory and became a machinist.
Hmm.
In doing so, you then gave up the variability and or the ability to have multiple customers, and your customer is your employer.
Hmm.
So change your compensation, the number of hours worked, exposure to injury from unsafe working conditions. I had a grandpa that was a machinist who was missing digits,
Wow.
right? And so as we think about AI and how AI is going to impact us, we have the opportunity to change how it's developed, how it's tested, how it's launched, and what impact it has on us as individuals or as groups and communities. And some of that solution is diversity. So women are underrepresented in AI developer roles, as well as all of the roles that come after the initial development. Challenge ourselves to use AI today and every day. Get
Mm.
familiar with the technology, get additional education or certifications, figure out how it's impacting your role and your organization. Even if you're not in a technology role, you are being impacted by learning about AI. Helps you imagine or anticipate impacts. In addition to that, we need our government to help us from a policy perspective in protecting our privacy. Social media highlighted this issue, and now AI supersizes the impact that social media has. And that can include disinformation that influences election results. We cannot let technology divide us and isolate us and take away what is so very human about that experience of
True.
being together.
It's so true, and I'm always very worried as a consumer of AI. I am concerned about my privacy. Is my data safe? Is my photograph tomorrow going into the world of porn? Right? Is my videos going to get circulated? Like you said, the government needs to do a better job in creating this awareness, and I think the companies also have a big responsibility when they're using AI to make sure that we as consumers are heavily protected and we feel safe. I think the safety issue is big right now, and a lot of people are not talking about it. So I'm glad you spoke about it. You know, AI and data both are so powerful, but only as strong as the people driving them. So, with people like you involved, we are definitely witnessing the future of tech unfold in real time. I wanted to ask Crystal that with AI potentially eliminating jobs, how do we pivot and ensure we are creating sustainable, human centered solutions?
Yeah, I've heard lots of answers around this topic from leaders of companies that are paving the way in AI, as well as people who are speculating what will happen that aren't necessarily in a technology leadership role, and tells us there is going to be job displacement. One would argue it's already started happening. For
Right.
instance, Intuit, who has an office in San Diego,
Hmm.
announced layoffs a few months ago. Efficiencies from AI was cited as one of the reasons why they were laying team members off. We're going to continue to see that.
Yeah.
And I think also the bigger risk is, at least for those of us in technology, AI isn't necessarily going to take your job or replace you, but a person that uses AI well is.
It's so true. And you don't think about it every single day, but I guess you be part of that process, it's just so much real for you.
We need to advocate and hold our elected officials accountable because corporations are, unfortunately, if they're publicly traded, they are managing the quarterly results. We need to find ways to make sure that the machine works for us, that
Yeah,
we're not working for the machine.
correct. I love that. So I think with the growing fear of I know you already covered this part, but do you believe AI genuinely will possess a risk to the future of creativity and human expression, or it's just going to evolve further?
I think that there's definitely risk. And the reason why I say that is if we look at recent changes that were ushered in by advances in digital technology and how that impacted creators, be them musicians, visual artists, filmmakers, etc., the impact was negative. It is extremely difficult in the United States to make a living as somebody who creates art. And
Right.
our ability to create art, we used to share our history through music. Those things are essential to us as human beings. During the COVID lockdown, art and music and all of the broader arts were treated as non-essential. A lot of people that were doing that creation really suffered that time in terms of income and in terms of just overall opportunity. We could do a better job of valuing art and creativity in our daily lives, and we start valuing the authenticity that comes from the creative process
Right.
rather than letting AI generated art or AI generated music suddenly dominate our cultural expression. Because if we give up those elements of our culture, then you know, we're just making money and consuming, honestly. And we're not giving back into our community.
I spoke to an artist at a farmer's market this summer in Seattle, and he had one of the most exotic and beautiful art that I've seen. Somebody, he's portrayed as a Valkyrie. I just stood there for 20 minutes staring at his artwork. And we ended up speaking for a little bit where he did mention how much the artists are affected in today's world. He's not going to just pick up a job. And what kind of job are we looking at for these artists? Why is their work still not valuable? Why is the actual creativity that these people possess not considered worthy to put on your walls or in your offices? I bought a piece of artwork from him and it made me feel grateful, but how many of us are going to do that? And of course, I cannot buy artwork from every single artist as well. So there are still some artists who are making great money, and I think we can leverage on that. The accessibility is an issue.
Yeah, it's an ongoing challenge. And frankly, it's one of the reasons that I joined a B Corp called Entrepreneur recently as an executive advisor. It's the first platform for the arts that was certified as a B Corp. And there's over 150,000 visual artists that are on the platform. Um, and there are multiple ways for them to get their art out in front of people and frankly, build an income stream that includes not only individuals purchasing art or prints, but also corporations having authentic, up and coming artists featured in their reception areas, in their conference rooms, as murals on walls of their corporate campus. There's a lot of opportunity to get authentic art that's being created specific to ideas or concepts in our
Right.
culture and get those out to people so that we can actually improve our own experience as employees or in an organization where you're becoming a tenant of a certain building. So I'm really hopeful that this kind of platform can help creators, and I look forward to seeing multiple ways that evolves over time as we have the opportunity to value our artists and musicians and filmmakers more than they have been in the past.
So true. I do want to move on to the next segment, which is, of course, very close to your heart, sustainability and technology. Sustainability is definitely a very hot topic these days, and we often overlook how data can drive environmental solutions. So, how are you leveraging data to solve global sustainable challenges we encounter these days?
I recently worked on a project with Microsoft, and I wanted to bring my long history and experience in data development to the sustainability problem that we're all facing from climate impact. And the project was focused in an area where corporations actually have a lot of power and influence, and that's with their supply chain. So a number of companies supply products and services to Microsoft. And how is that evaluated? How is that quantified? What learnings can we have from the profile of the different suppliers, and how can we go and influence those suppliers to do better and to have better environmental impact? That's one of the ways that I have personally worked on utilizing data to help effect change so that we can mitigate the impact of climate change.
Yeah, that's important, the steps you are taking right now. What is the one misconception, Crystal, about using technology to create sustainable solutions that you wish more leaders around you understand or understood?
Technology is a tool, AI included in that. It's one of the
Yeah,
tools in the toolkit. The data that you capture and analyze within your technology tools can provide more information to leaders of an organization. But the real change comes from looking at what the company's operations are, where the
yeah.
company is going strategically, and how you can do that better across environmental, social, and governance factors. There's a concept in ESG called materiality, and it actually is from the financial industry. In
Mhm.
quarterly financial results, investors, institutional as well as individual investors, want to know what is material to a company that is either increasing revenue and profitability or negatively impacting. And materiality is different by industry and for specific companies. But by going in and thinking about what's material is directly driving the impact of my organization, you can use that to manage risk as well as take opportunities. I view them as two sides of the same coin. So, adopting a specific technology is not the solution. That technology needs to be integrated into your organization and your decision making processes and your operations to be useful in decision making to steer where you want to go, not only for your stakeholders that are investors, but also your stakeholders as employees or in the communities that you operate in.
Wow, that was very informational. Your journey shows us that technology is more than tools, it's a force for change. What is one challenge, Crystal, in your personal or professional life that pushed you to grow the most, and how did you overcome it? And I think you also have a very interesting story about your background, about your father. I feel that every woman who's in STEM, I want to know about her journey. I want to know what pushed her. So, what is your story?
So I'm an outsider oftentimes, not just because I'm a woman, which we've already discussed a good bit in this podcast, who chose to go into the financial industry and then the technology industry where I was surrounded by men. But I spent my childhood in West Virginia, and my father was a musician. He was a championship fiddle player. That's not how he made a living. He was a master carpenter, but it is what he was known for. So he did project based work in carpentry, and then he would go and travel and play music, including some session work in Nashville, which he didn't really care for. But divergent thinking to the core. But my experience of being raised in an artist household, my mother was an accountant, so very different from my father. But she kept everything organized and made sure that he was where he needed to be and did the receiving line to meet fans after his performances and get them teed up to say hi to him. So I thought that was normal. And I had no idea that other people's childhoods weren't like this until later. At the same time, in the late 70s and early 80s in West Virginia, we experienced tremendous economic change
Right.
because the area that I lived in is called the Rust Belt. So there's a lot of industrial um, companies that are along the Ohio River and in that valley.
Mhm.
And those companies were shutting down and laying off all of their workers due to changes in environmental regulations, rightly so, that needed to happen. But the impact was a lot of people were without jobs and families were leaving our
Mm.
little small town and my school to go move somewhere else. And it was a negative experience to watch your friends go and never see them again and wonder like when it was going to stop. So I made the decision then that I was going to have flexibility and freedom in my career and what I chose as my education and career path. And that I wanted to be more of a generalist rather than a specialist not only from an interest standpoint, but also because I didn't ever want to be in a corner where I couldn't find a new job and I needed to get retrained and I needed to move my family to somewhere that I didn't want to live because I couldn't support myself. So that was the stakes that I laid out for myself, and it actually drove the decisions that I've made since then. One of the challenges that I faced by doing that, or just as a happenstance of being employed, frankly, is when I was first laid off, which was 6 years into my career, and I was still in the financial industry. Mass layoffs happen when you have market downturns, and you know that nobody's getting a new job anytime soon, right?
True. Mhm.
So I used that as an opportunity to rechart my course. For instance, I didn't want to live in Manhattan forever. Part of that process when I was laid off the first time was to leave New York and head for the West Coast to set up my new home in Seattle and take the next chapter of my career there.
I didn't know you were in Seattle.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, and so I took what was a challenge and turned it into an opportunity for myself. And then I did that again with my second layoff in the financial industry. At that point, I also left the industry because I had been working in fintech and I moved to straight technology. But I further went on to do two self-funded sabbaticals when I was
Wow.
in a situation that wasn't serving me anymore. And I wanted to focus on other things. And that gets back to our earlier conversation about women's economic power. So I had the power to be able to make those decisions, to go and choose to do things that I wanted to focus on and that I wanted to be different rather than being tied to a specific job, a specific manager, or living in a specific location, even though I didn't want to be there.
Wow. What I love about your journey is, how it connects technology with humanity. It's a reminder of what Oprah Winfrey says. The biggest adventure you can take is to live the life of your dreams. And you're doing just that and inspiring so many around you to do the same. Thank you, Crystal. We are coming to the final segment of our show. But I do have to say that this was a big learning for me about data, AI, sustainability as a consumer from the other side. It's very important that we get this podcast out to as many people. Are you ready for some fun, quick, quirky, rapid fire questions?
I love rapid fire. Let's do it.
Okay. What's one tech tool you cannot live without?
Perplexity AI. It's purpose built for research. I use it every day. One of my friends, totally not in technology whatsoever, told her about it. She installed it on her iPhone. Now she uses it every day. So if you haven't tried it, highly recommend it.
Okay, I need to write that down again. Friend or foe? AI friend or foe?
Frenemy,
What's your biggest guilty pleasure when you're not crunching data?
having a cup of tea and a piece of dark chocolate.
Ooh, that's my favorite. Cheers to that. One book every woman in tech must read.
Own It by Sally Krawcheck.
And even if you're not in tech, go look for it.
Yeah, so she was actually the CEO of two financial organizations on Wall Street. And when she was laid off, her firing made the Wall Street Journal. So, going back to the theme of women's economic power, Sally actually has a great perspective and great recommendations on that.
Amazing. Morning or night owl?
So, before I went to Wall Street, I was a night owl when I was still a student. And then,
Wall Street, you know the answer.
yeah, the market opening at 9 a.m., which meant that you needed to be ready to roll and totally up to date on everything before it started, meant I became a morning person.
What's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self starting out in fintech?
Spend a little less time doing and more time planfully networking.
Who's a leader of innovator you look up to and why?
One of my favorite icons is she was actually in politics, the late Governor Ann Richards. She was the second woman governor of Texas. She was also a Democrat, which is hard to envision these days as someone that Texans put into the governor office. However, that was Anne, and she was a pistol. She's known for her velvet glove, iron fist.
Wow. I'll have to actually do a lot more research about her. Crystal, thank you so much for showing us that the real power of data lies not in technology, but in the hands of those who wield for it for good. Your journey from the finance world to tech and AI now, combined with your passion for women's economic empowerment, I think it's the exact kind of leadership our world needs right now. To our listeners, remember the future belongs to those who dare to innovate, dream, and empower others with every story that needs to be heard. And Crystal is the true storyteller of our time. Until next time, keep pushing boundaries, challenging norms, and redefining success on your own terms. Don't forget to like, share, follow, and subscribe. And you'll have all of Crystal's information in your podcast details. Thank you, and I look forward to see you next time.